Golf, though, has kept us through the summer, pardon me, with just unbelievable action, and you guys have run your models this week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Kelley, what you thought. I didn't put a ton into my models this week. I
think that's a fair way to say. I ran it. I did all my work. I wanted to see what it would spit out.
Same.
But I kind of, I mean, it's a 30-guy field, so obviously we're not making, 9, 10, 12, 15 bets like we would be in some of these normal tournaments. You knew it's going to be limited anyways. You got to dial in on just, a couple guys. So, yeah, I mean, I ran everything. I mean, stat-wise, if you want to go over this real quick, Matt, we're at East Lake this year again. Third year we're here. 7,300 yards, par 70, Bermuda greens. Dustin Johnson won this last year. Rory McIlroy in the first year with the staggered scoring rules. We got 5 par 4s measuring between 450 to 500 yards. So that is something I included in my stat model.
Okay.
That was something I looked at. Otherwise, it was strokes gained approach, strokes gained ball striking, fairways gained. I weighed a little bit. That was something that has popped up over the past couple of years here. And then stroke gained putting on Bermuda and some opportunities gained was really all I put into my model.
Apparently, from the early, and Rex even talked about it, that there's been a bunch of rain come through. So one of the things is that this rough could play a little bit more penal than normal, just because wet rough, moist rough is harder to hit through than dry rough. And so I've heard a couple of guys talking about that might be a factor here this week. That said, it doesn't really matter to me because I really wasn't looking at guys that were spraying it all over the place as it is.
And that's why I did factor in fairways gained because of that, yeah.
So that really didn't affect kind of how I looked at this. Listen, this is one of those, we've been preaching it all week. I'll say it again. I added more Jon Rahm last night because there was a shop here in town that had him at 7-1 to win over the 72 holes. I am playing him both ways. So just so everyone know, I'm playing him with the strokes and without the strokes, because the way that you go about this could change throughout the course of a tournament if you're Jon Rahm, because if he ends up getting a massive lead heading into Sunday, there is a chance we could get backdoored on those other rounds. On those other bets. And so I did play him with the strokes and without the strokes because his motivations could change, and that's something that we need to keep in mind whenever we're kind of doing this. I have Rahm at 4-1, 6-1, added at 7-1 last night. The only other thing I did a lot of this has to do with just history here as well. I did play Rory as an outright, again, not with the strokes, just on the 72, and I played Sam Burns with
big number on Burns.
It's a big number on Burns, and Burns has something outside of just the money, which, by the way, this is going to be by far his most massive year. Young guy on tour, but he is loosely getting mentioned for consideration for the Ryder Cup.
Yeah,
and if you look, and if they start to, if Steve Stricker really does what he said, and he's going to go about picking players a different way and not going about the status quo and all that, if you look at what Sam Burns has done recently compared to a lot of some of these other guys that have been, that could or may not make this Ryder Cup team, if he has a strong showing again this week, it would be very hard for him to make a case that Sam Burns wouldn't be one of the better, more consistent, hotter players on tour heading into the Ryder Cup. And if he gets snubbed, he gets snubbed. But I think there's at least an outside chance Burns could play his way onto that team this week. And that is certainly something I think is going on there, outside of the monetary motivation, but certainly the Ryder Cup thing as well.
I think so too. I got close to firing on him. I think that's 40-1 around the number on him. I think that's a big number for a guy that, like you said, he's basically been playing as well as anybody this past month or so. He's been incredible. As far as just, you played Rory. You played a little Rory. I played a little Justin Thomas. Yeah. Kind of same thing of what you were saying. He was popping in the model. And then he's T2, T3 over the past 2 years here at this tournament. Rory won in 2019, T8 last year. So that was one. That's what the other guy did play, both with the starting strokes and without the starting strokes. Kind of because he's in a similar spot of Rahm. Same thing could kind of happen for people. We talk about our models every week. For other guys that were popping on my model, Matt, Morikawa and Abraham Answer were both up there. Not touching Morikawa this week just because I don't know where he's at still with injury stuff. I don't know about you. I don't think I'm going to be fading him. He definitely sounds a lot better this week, talking about where his game's at than where he was a week ago and 2 weeks ago. So I'm not fading him. And Abraham Answer, I mean, we talk in win equity all the time when we're talking these golf tournaments. Yeah. This is, I mean, win equity more than any other tournament ever, right? We're talking the Tour Championship. I just don't know if I can get there to get an Abraham Answer bet in when he finally just picked up his first PGA Tour win like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and you know, look, if I like Sam Burns, here's the thing about a lot of these matchups that are out there, right? I mean, like if I like Sam Burns to do things this week, there are a lot of plus money opportunities to get on him in matchups as well. Something that I think you should certainly consider if you're looking at some of these guys, just kind of back up your convictions with the matchup plays as well. I'm probably not going to target Morikawa per se, but I will probably, if something looks right, I will probably fire against him. You know, again, the one guy that I am going to be using in head-to-heads as much as I can in matchups and even 3 balls if I can find, I'm going to be using Xander a lot here. And you go back, he's played 16 rounds at this course. He is in this field over the last, of the 16 rounds. Nobody in this field has played more than 24 as it is anyway. You got Xander, first overall strokes gained total, third tee to green, second ball striking, fourth off the tee, 8th approach, third around the green, second putting. I mean, he is just as good as anybody at this course at East Lake. He loves playing at East Lake, really, really likes this course, really, really likes how this sets up. Some of these courses just match people's eye. And at East Lake, he has been an absolute dominant. And the reason I went with Rory as well, so right behind Xander is Rory. You look at Rory at East Lake, if we just look at East Lake, 24 rounds for Rory McIlroy in this field, second overall strokes gained total, first tee to green, first ball striking, first off the tee, third around the green, 6th approach, 8th putting. I mean, just very, very high in every single category at this particular course. And sometimes these courses just fit people's eyes. And sometimes, and these Ross courses are apparently some of those courses that sometimes they just fit people's eye, and they really, really like the way that the course is done. And so that's going to be about it for me this week. That's not to say I won't get in tournament, Gill. I mean, I might find myself in tournament here after I get 18 holes of information and able to kind of see if some of the numbers don't match up. But yeah, pretty light card for me. Rom would be a very good outcome. Rory would be all right,
well,
and of course Burns would be. I mean,
yeah. And let's say what we said last night, because I think this will drive home the point for folks. This is your largest outright bet of the year.
Yeah, and likely because, like I said, so I budget typically how much I'm going to put into outrights. Well, I'm only playing 3 outrights this week, and I didn't even know I was going to play the other 2, and so I didn't even know I was going to play Rory and Burns until last night. Whenever I kind of ran a little bit more and looked at the different stuff at the numbers that I could get them at. So yeah, I mean the bulk of that just goes into Rahm. And here's the thing, it's also playing a number here, and this is what Kelley and I were talking about before we came in the studio today. Rahm can finish dead last out of 30, and I will feel perfectly fine making this. I'm getting 7-1 on a guy that has been the most consistent golfer in the world over the last 8 months for sure, and probably the last 18 months if you really just add it all together. And if he finishes dead last in this, I do not care. I'm getting 7-1 on a field of 30 golfers, one of which is coming off double pneumonia. I will make that bet every single time, feel perfectly fine with that bet, and again, finishes dead last. I don't care.
Yeah, and Gil, same for me. This is not my biggest bet tournament of the year, not even close, but biggest outright bet for sure on Jon Rahm on the 7-1, and then I played them both in both kind of markets. More money on Jon Rahm this week than I've had on any golfer this whole season. And Matt, to your point, past 24 rounds worldwide for Jon Rahm is from Justin Ray earlier today. 67.38 scoring average, combined 91 under par, birdie or better on 30% of holes.
Seems good.
Seems pretty good.
Every third hole is a birdie. Yeah, every third hole is a birdie or an eagle.
Again, back to those odds. He was plus 550 last week. in a field of 70.
Yeah.
He was 7-1 in a field of 120, and we're getting him at 7-1 in a field of 30.
The way I have always said it is some bets you have to just be willing to lose.
Yeah,
You have to.
And that's where we're at. And just a real quick before we go to break, clarification when I'm saying like the motivation could change for a guy like Rahm because he's so close to winning the tournament, winning FedEx with the starting strokes, that when I say the reason I bet both with the strokes and without the strokes is because he could find himself on Sunday with a massive lead and play a little bit more conservatively and then might get run down on that 72-hole deal. So that's why I wanted to have both tickets in hand in case motivations do change.
He could win
$15 million might change your motivation.
He could
just
be in the catbird seat for the $15 million and then play conservatively late, and somebody behind him can actually end up with a better 72-hole score. That is why they're playing both of those markets. And by the way, the other benefit, you don't get confused.
Yeah.